Tune in to the Diva Hustle.
Hey, you guys, thanks for tuning in to the Diva Hustle Show. Today, our guest is Dr. Terrence Foster. He's a best-selling author. He's promoting his book called The Stress Book. Dr. Foster, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Pam.
So,
Paris. I
Paris.
guess you Paris.
So, tell us about your book. What made you come up with the Stress Book?
Okay, so what happened in 2019, just about when the pandemic began to take its effect on us, I did a YouTube video about stress, and it seemed to have taken some traction. People relating to it, they were responding, the comments were good. And I said to myself, it would be a good thing to have something where, people could look at, read it, and have something to keep by their bedside. So the desire to write this stress book became, I guess, the genesis of it began. And I put forward the book, and it has been doing well so far.
So I mean, like you were saying, even now with COVID and what's this May being Mental Health Awareness Month, right? So you're like, I know in the book it says you have 40 ways to manage stress. What are some samples or ways people can manage stress, especially like nowadays?
Right. So the book is called The Stress Book: 40 Plus Ways to Manage Stress and Enjoy Your Life. And the way I've approached that is to break it down into three main categories. One of the categories is physical action, the next category is mental action, and then community actions. And within these actions are a number of things that can be done. For example, when we talk of physical action, we're talking about, for example, setting goals. Setting goals is one of the most important things anyone could do in order to get their life into focus and also to reduce stress. Because once you know what you have on your plate to be done, to be accomplished, then you could work in a way that you could literally get those things done. And you could pretty much fashion a way or chart a course, if you will, that will allow you to be more productive. You could see things that are going to happen. You could predict them. Your life goes in a better way. So setting goal is one thing. Another thing about physical action we talk about, and I'll just talk about some of them. I won't go through the entire 40 plus ways, is setting a budget. Some people don't realize the importance of setting a budget. And although it is a simple concept, it escapes most people because setting a budget allows you to see where your expenses are. And we know that finance is a major factors that affect all of us, whether you have a lot of money, whether you have a little or none. It's so important to know, what are your expenses? Can you meet them? Are you going beyond your expenses? And are you in a position where you could say, you know what, I don't really need that. I can do without that. Do I need to go to the restaurant today? Or do I need to go to that particular restaurant because it's so expensive? Because we all have different idea of what expenses are. Some of us will say, okay, I'll go to a restaurant and I'll spend $300-400. Some will say, you know what, $20 is good for me. That's all I can afford. And there's nothing wrong with that. As long as you choose, you know what your budgets are, you know what your expenses are, then you can try to live within that means. And if you're able to do that, then surely you're going to find that you're going to have less stress. And that's a simple concept, but it escapes most of us. Another aspect about, physical action is something I call protect our possessions. And what does that mean? For example, if you have a home, how do you protect it? You could protect it by making sure you have adequate insurance. You could make sure that you have adequate alarm. You could make sure that if you're in an area that requires certain code or violation, that you are not in violation of those codes. So those are certain basic and fundamental things that are important. When we talk about protecting our possession, we could also look at what about, for example, our credit. That's our possession, and that's important. Part of it is a financial position, but it's also a very important part. But a lot of us do not take the time to say, okay, let me ensure that my credit is good. And we're not going to discuss, what is good credit or that's, but, just the basic concept of knowing exactly where am I going with this? How can this be done now so that when let's say I need to get a house, let's say I'm living in a rented house and I want to acquire a home or purchase a home, then is my credit good enough? Well, it doesn't start the day when you are ready to buy that house. It starts years before. So you take all the steps that are necessary. So you don't go to the bank and then you're stressed out about, well, what interest rate am I going to get? Am I going to get a credit? You have already done some of the groundwork. And one of the essential concepts about this book, Paris, is this. I focus a lot on prevention, not so much on just management, because management is what happens after you have stress.
Okay.
But prevention is something that you put in effect so that you have less stress. You could better deal with all the things that are confronting you. And that is one of the main differences between this book and a lot of books are good books out there. I'm not saying my book is the only book, self-help book about stress. But what it does is that it also focuses on prevention, which is a key concept, which, okay, you need to do this, take a cold shower, do this, do that. But what if you weren't in that position before?
Right.
How wonderful would that be? Right. And that's part of managing stress. And the other important part is prevention of stress. And that's something that this book stresses. All right, let's look at something else when we talk about physical action, mental action. What are some mental action that causes stress? One of them is, literally accepting who we are. How many of us have difficulty accepting who we are? Oh, I am not pretty. I'm not beautiful. My hair is too short. My hair is too long. My nose is not straight enough. My color is not the right color. And you could go on and you could create a myriad of things that one could literally put these into some sort of characteristic and say, well, these are the features that I need to have to feel comfortable. But when we step back and look at ourselves, we are all beautiful.
Right.
And we're all unique. But the key factor here, are you or am I willing to accept who I am and say, I'm happy with who I am. I'm happy with the way I look, because beauty.
And that's stress in itself.
Is a stress in itself, right? And so many people get so caught up in, oh my gosh, I'm too fat, I'm too thin, I'm not tall enough, I'm too short. And all of these different stresses we put in ourselves. So accepting who you are is an important concept in reducing stress. And if you understand that, if you really believe in who you are, it's a key concept. Now, that is some of the physical thing, but there's also the mental aspect of who you are.
Right.
Are you a good person? Because if you live your life and you are so, and maybe this is only known to you, you're an evil person. You hate people, you do bad things to people. Are you happy with yourself when you stand in front of the mirror and you look and say, hey, I am Paris, I'm looking at myself. How do I feel about myself? I'm D. Terrence Foster. I'm looking at myself. How do I feel about D. Terrence Foster? So accepting yourself, it's not just a physical component, but it's also a mental component. And more often, the mental component is more significant because that often determines how you feel.
Yeah.
And that is something that a lot of people don't realize. We must accept ourselves in order to reduce our stress level and also make us better people. Because once you're able to accept yourself, you can also accept other people. But if you don't like yourself, if you don't accept yourself, then you will not be able to accept other people as well. So, accepting who we are is a key concept in stress management.
And you hit on a key point, whereas the mental part of the stress is more, I guess the word is more stronger than the physical part of it.
Right, because mentally it drives how you perceive yourself physically. If you have a good idea, a good concept of who you are as a person, then you're going to be in a much better position to say, you know what? Hey, I'm overweight. Yes, I could do something about that. Hey, I mean, beauty again is in the eyes of the beholder, but are you able to accept that mentally? Can you actually look at yourself and say, you know what? I like my complexion. I don't have to be, what's it, 36, 24, 36, because guess what? That is superficial. Right. There's nothing wrong with having that size, but then that's not the only size that is important. And we have come out of a culture where sometimes we look at other people defining what is beauty. So you yourself of probably aware yourself of accept what other people define as beauty. We do not accept beauty as we see it, but we let other people tell us what is beautiful. And that, of course, has changed and is evolving over years and time. We remember a time when, you had to be of a certain race or a certain color, a certain hairstyle. Now we're seeing, beauty contests, for example, from all over the world, all different races, all different creeds. And that's important to actually setting the framework, the paradigm in which people can realize that, hey, you don't have to be one particular color to be beautiful. You don't have to have a certain length of hairs to be beautiful. You don't have to have a certain high color to have to be considered beautiful. And all these different traits or characteristics are so important in determining what is beautiful. So mentally is more important than physically, but the physical aspect can take people down a different path altogether.
Oh yeah. And the thing about it is, it's like you were saying, when we, society, we have this idea of what perfect is. So then that creates stress for people. And like you were saying, you have the physical part of it where people can really do something about like credit and insurance to be proactive instead of being reactive, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, it does. Because, but sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit, or we don't realize how much power we have as individuals. Because there's so many things that we can do, but we have to begin to believe that we can make a difference in our own life, let alone make a difference in other people's life. So a lot of time we just, you could say we sell ourselves short. Yes. We do not accept some of the potential greatness that we have. And we do have that. But first we have to accept it. And that's one of the major mental component that we have that will reduce stress. Another one that often, not very uncommon, but most people will relate to this is yes, and I have a chapter in the book, it's called Yes, It's Okay to Say No. And people will say, oh man, that's a good one. But are we able to do that? And who do we say no to?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's easier to say no to the people that you don't like, the people that you don't feel if they disappear from your life. Nothing does matter. But what about the people that are close to you, that you consider family, and people that you actually care about and genuinely love? Are you able to say no to those people? And that's one of the key concepts of stress management. You have to be able to say no, not only to those that you do not like, but you also have to say no to the people that you care about and the people that you like. Because if you cannot do that, then it's maybe just that much more difficult for you to have a life where, hey, I have things to do. I love you. I believe what you're doing is a good thing. I know that it will benefit society. And maybe, yes, one day I could help you, but maybe just not this time.
Right. Right.
Yeah. You could help somebody, but probably not just the same. And one of the many ways of accomplishing that, again, it comes back to goal setting. If you have things to do, Paris, and you can say, you know what, I've got these goals, I got this to do, that to do, that to do. Then people don't just walk in your life and say, okay, take me to this place. I need to go here. I want this, I want that. He said, no, No, it's that, and and you're not being mean, you're not being
Oh yeah.
crazy, but it's the ability to say no and feel good about it and not feeling like, oh my gosh. And sometimes, yeah, we're human beings. We
Mm-hmm.
want to be good, we want to be helpful, but sometimes we just have to know that it is okay to say no. Because once we could realize that, and once we could put that as part of our life, then it becomes much more easier to do, rather than, okay, if you're sitting there, you have no goals, you have no dreams, and somebody come along, oh, Price, you want to go to the mall? Okay, I'll go. Oh, you want us to just go to the Bahamas? Oh, okay. All right, how about just let's go whatever. And the tendency to do that, if you have no goals, no parameter, no limits, then you'll join in. Now, it doesn't mean that your life has to be so structured and so rigid that you cannot do those things. Yeah, sometimes you'll just, I mean, your friend come along and say, you want to go somewhere? Oh, sure. But the point I'm making here is that you have to realize when you're going overboard. You have to realize when you say, you know what? Hey, this is not where I want to be. I've got important things. I've got deadline. I've got that. And deadline should, of course, not be the only thing that drives your life, but it should be an important part in terms of reducing your stress level. So that's one of the other things. And let's look at some other. We talk about physical action. We just talked about something about mental action. Let's talk about community action. What is community action? Community action involving other people, almost what it says. And for example, one of the things we talk about is in community action, the willingness or the ability to help others.
Okay.
It is so important to realize that when we're helping others, we're also creating an environment where we ourselves are being helped.
Right.
At the same time. Now, you may say to yourself, well, you know what? I don't have anything to offer other people. I can't do anything. And I apologize for that. Sorry.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, you may say to yourself, I don't have anything to give to people. I can't offer anything. And sometimes people feel like that. They say, okay, I'm poor. But let's say, for example, you're somebody out there and you said, well, I don't have a car. I can't do this. But what if there's a charity event that you could get a ride to and you could go there? Maybe you could help out in the parking lot. You could help park cars. And if it's, let's say it's a food bank, then you're making a contribution to others. And you know what? One of the interesting things about this part is that when you help others, even though it doesn't take away your problem, you know what it does? It gives you the drive, the courage to face your problem with much more vigor and much more energy. Because now, you're not so focused on just yourself. Oh, I've got this. Oh, I can't do this. You just feel good about the fact that you yourself are able to help each others. And the other amazing thing about this part is that when you help others, very often, sometimes people look and say, you know what, I'm helping them, but, are they grateful? And do they appreciate it? But if you're looking at it like that, then you're looking at it the wrong way. Because you know what? When we help others, there's a greater joy that we get from just helping those people. That doesn't necessarily come from the person that we help.
Right. And
here's another comment that's related to that. Sometimes when we help people, we'll find people that will come into our lives. That will help us that we say, I have no business for helping us. Why are they helping us? Why are they even taking the time out to assist us when they themselves have no reason or no business? Because life is like that. You help people, but the people that you get help from sometimes have no relationship to you. They just come into your life, and maybe in some point along their life, they have helped others. And because they've helped others, they don't care about who they're helping. They're just helping other people.
But I feel like we need more of that, of helping others, especially now, because like you were saying, it's like a feeling that comes over you when you help others. And it's almost like, and then you don't know how you're helping that person just by taking 5 minutes out of your day. You know what I mean? And I feel like right now in this trying time as we coming out of the pandemic or going into another, I don't, whatever. But we need more of that helping others, that love, that generosity of, because that also, like you said, that relieves stress when you're helping others.
It does. It does. It's an amazing stress buster. And a lot of us, once we could accept the concept that it's not so much that we are going to get something from the person that we help, but our benefit from that comes from within. Just even the very thought of thinking to help somebody comes in, you get joy from that even before you commit the act of helping that person.
Yes.
You think, oh, you know what, I'm going to do this for John or Mary. And you think about it. And right there and then, a feeling of joy takes over your heart and makes you you feel so much more fulfilled. You feel so much more happy that now you could help somebody. So it's a very important concept. Another concept with respect to community action that I want to talk about because it's so important is getting professional help. Because sometimes we get into this mode or this phase where we don't realize that, you know what, I've tried and I've done a lot of things here, but I need help. It's beyond what I can do. And therefore, it's so important to seek professional help, not just help from your friends and your coworkers. You know, they'll be there, they'll be trying, they'll be rooting for you, and they'll be trying to make your life better. But there comes a point when you need to hear it from somebody who can be more objective.
Right.
Okay, you know what, parents, this is what you need to do. These are the guidelines. These are the things that have worked and have been tested. So seeking professional help for when you have stress to that point where you can't function is important. And what are those points? You know, we look at stress and we say stress is not only a bad thing. You know, you could have what is called just calmness, where you're calm and you're feeling great. You could have what is called eustress, and you could be in distress. Now, for example, if you're in a state where you're calm, that can be a good thing because you're feeling good. But sometimes that is not good because we all need a level of stress to drive us forward, to motivate us to do something better than take us to a different level than where we are. So having some level of stress in our life is an important element of what makes us successful or what could make us or take us to a different path. And that is important. So we need some level of stress. And that is where we call eustress. And if you have just calmness in your life, then guess what? You're not going to be very productive.
Right.
You know, if you wake up every day, you just say, oh man, I have nothing to do, nothing to challenge you.
No worries.
On the other hand, if you go to the other extreme and you said, you look at your life, it's in shambles, you look at everything and you can't figure out what to do, and you probably do nothing because you're saying, hey man, I don't even know what to do. I'm in so much stress. You know, my finances are a problem, my personal life is a problem, everything is bad. Then that's not a good state to be in.
Right.
So we don't want to be at either extreme of distress or calmness. We want to be somewhere in the middle where we have a level of stress that is taking us to a point where we could say, you know what, I am going to make this be a way to move forward because, I have some stress, but it's good stress. Yeah, and that's an important part of what makes life worthwhile.
And then you being a doctor, and so you wrote this book from two angles, right? So what specialty do you practice?
Okay, so here's one of the things that sometimes I feel maybe I might be the only person who could write a book like this because my life is so varied and so different. Okay, my specialty is pain management and it's rehabilitation. So I see a lot of people who are struggling with pain and stress, and in part this book was written for them, and of course, you know, dealing with some of the pandemic. But also I've been involved in a lot of things in charity work. I've been involved in business. I've been involved in as a personal injury doctor. So I have a life that is filled with stress, and being able to address those stress is important. I've been involved in real estate. I've been involved in some level of construction. I've been involved in just a number of life issues that personally I've experienced. So what does that allow me to do? That allow me to see things in a much wider and different scale. That okay, he's a doctor and he's just talking about this. No.
Right.
My life is like, it runs a lot of things. And I came out of a very humble beginning. So I know what it is to be to grow up in poverty, even though I didn't know it was poor.
Right.
So I know that, and I accept that, and I embrace that. And also know what it is. I'm not saying I'm rich, but I'm not doing too badly yet. All things to so I know what it is to go through those paths. I've lived in a house that is I've slept on people's sofa. I've lived in rented house. I've owned apartment. I've owned homes, rent house, and so I've been through all of those. And my book it's 22 chapters. It talks about race. It talks about different culture. Talk about religion. Talk about sex. It talk about just so many things. It's considered by a literary agent as one of the most comprehensive books have been written on the subject of stress. It has won so far 5 awards.
Wow! Congratulations!
Right. So, and one of the reasons why it's so comprehensive is because my life as a whole is a comprehensive life where I've lived and experienced so many different things. So when I talk about section there about the law, I talk about cryptocurrency. I talk about wills, living will, living trust. I talk about all these different things. I talk about caregivers. I talk about different ways of dealing with family dynamics, and all these different things are that are discussed. So when I look at all those things, so my life is not just limited to, okay, he's a doctor and all he's going to talk about is doctor stuff. Because when this book is written for people, everyday people, I've written a book before about the opioid epidemic. That's much more comprehensive. It's much more dynamic. But it is a much more, you could say, much more dense book. Yeah. Great book, fantastic book, but also it's not as, it is much more deep than what the stress book is. The stress book, 40 Plus Ways to Manage Stress and Enjoy It. It's a book that helps people from all levels. Right. And, you'll find different people have different ways of managing stress, of dealing with different things. We talk about different relationships that people get into. We talk about, nature. We talk about how to enjoy the environment. So there's a myriad of things that are discussed in this book.
And I think you hit on something key. I mean, like you said, you have the racism, you have the different religions, and because it seems like everybody can tap from whatever their background is, everyone can tap into this book, which again, I go back to, this is key right now. We're dealing with a lot of issues. And even when you touched on the mental health, going to get professional help, especially in the Black communities, that was frowned upon, right? You're going to go talk to a therapist, or you're crazy, and but we need more people coming forth saying it's okay to go get professional help. You're not, let's say, quote unquote crazy.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Paris, because sometimes, particularly in the Black community, we've seen a lot of people, oh man, he's going to a shrink, or he must be crazy, But we have to realize that professional help is a necessary thing, and so many people, particularly in the Black community, who suffers in silence because they don't want to feel like somebody to see them or know that they go to a psychiatrist. Right. And so they do crazy stuff, and it doesn't help. So that is an important point that needs to be discussed ad nauseum, because it's such an important aspect of moving the paradigm, making a paradigm shift to where people get help, because it's an important part of life. Yes.
And so when people purchase your book, I know we touched on a lot of the strategies and ways in your book of dealing with stress. What are some of the key takeaways that you want your readers to know?
Right. Some of the key takeaways. One is that prevention is a major thing. You see, this book has 40 plus different ways of how to manage and prevent stress. And it's not just for people who are in relationship but we talk about relationship, we talk about all some of those things that I've discussed before. So you may not find at any given time that you're going through all of these things, but if you are not going through it, you will know someone who is going through some of this thing. In fact, one of the some of the people who review this book said this book could essentially be used as a reference book, meaning that you could use this book as a guide. So it's not something that you just read and you say, oh man, that's a good read, and you just put it down. No. This is a book that you could go back to and you could look and say, well, what was he saying about living will? What was he saying about budget? What was he saying about caregiver? What was he saying about credit? How to protect your credit? What was he saying about all these things? So there's all these different things that are there that helps people and guide people to a path where they could see things and use those things in their life at different point in their life, or make it available to people that they care about in their life, so that they could also use those things as well.
And so where can people purchase the book at?
Okay, so the book is available in four formats. Available in Kindle, ebook, paperback, hardcover, and audio book. Okay. And it's available Amazon. All books are almost available at Amazon, and basically wherever books are sold. Right. The book can be purchased there. My website is dterrencefoster.com. So people could go there, and if they go to my website, they will see not only that book, but they will get links to that book and to so many other things that I'm involved in. And it's good for people to get involved in things, because that's how we become important, or that's how we make a difference in people's life, by trying to help others. And on my website, you'll see all the different things that I'm involved in addition to being an author.
And so what's next for Dr. Foster? What are you working on next?
Well, I have another book coming out. It's called The Eustress book, which is a summary version of this book, and also a workbook with respect to that. There's also a new concept that I came upon in doing this book. It's called abstract kidnapping disorder, which is a mental disorder related to relationship, which is something that I'm in the process of writing a book on that as well. So those are some of the key concepts, and I think I have a lot of books just swirling in my head.
I love it.
Yeah, and in addition to being a nonfiction writer, I look forward to writing a one or more fiction books. But I still think that I have maybe about 2 or 3 nonfiction books before I get to that.
Well, I love to hear about the kidnapping theory book, about the relationship part. So
if you go to my website, Paris, you will see at least a synopsis of it: abstract kidnapping disorder, AKD, right? And you'll see that.
All right. Well, thanks, Dr. Foster, for joining us. It was a pleasure. You're more than welcome anytime to come back. And our listeners definitely have to check you out and your book. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much, Paris, for having me, and I appreciate it. Have a wonderful day.
All right.
No, I let the whole world know. Divas, we get the dough. The hustle.